Things I like to do the most is travel. I go on early wine tours, senior trips. I like to travel and meet new people. Someone asked me if I had a partner when I went. I said, no. I like to meet new women. Everybody has a story. My mother was born in Abington, Indiana, and my father, Boston, Indiana. And they met at a dance. She was 16, and he was 26 when they got married. I was always close to my father. I don't know why, but I've always been close to him. Everywhere he'd go, I'd go. I think it was because I reminded him of Bobby, the one that got killed. When my mother was pregnant with me, and she come out the back door, and Bobby was swinging on a wire attached to a pole, and a pole come over and hit him in the head and killed him. I always think that affected me in a way, you know, and I think it kind of made her resent me too. A favorite memory of my mother. Well, they would play cards with Shorty Armstrong. I mentioned him once before. And she baked this chocolate cake. Oh, boy, did I love chocolate cake. And she'd cut it, you know. We didn't have much chocolate cake, but she would bake a chocolate cake. The most important lesson is hard work, independence, rely on yourself. That's it. You know, they had it much worse, I think. They were poor, and it was a depression. Of course, we were kids then. We didn't know any better. We were happy, and, you know, when we were kids. But I think they had it much harder than I did. We lived on a farm up a long lane in an old brick house, and it was so cold. All we had was a wood-burning stove in the living room, and we hover around that to keep warm. But anyway, they must have let me lay and get an ear infection, and they took me to the hospital, Reed Hospital in Richmond, and they give me a mastoid operation. And Ped and Ella, my aunt, took me home to their house in Boston, big Boston, Indiana, because, you know, and I really enjoyed it. You know, they didn't have any kids, and my relatives all favored me quite a bit because they didn't like the way my mother treated me. I know Grandma and I used to send her letters saying how worried she was about how my mother treated me, you know, never interested in me, never knew what I was doing or anything. And my mother would get so mad when she'd get those letters. Okay, Loretta Dills. Her father had a great job, you know, and she was kind of cliquish, you might say. And she invited everybody to her birthday party and didn't invite me. And then I had a birthday party, and nobody come. I know, I felt so sorry. Ella had a birthday party for me, and I felt so sorry for her. She'd made cupcakes and cake and everything, and we sat around and waited for somebody to come, and nobody come. My favorite memory of summer was we would walk about 6 miles down the road through the woods to Elkhorn Falls. Can you imagine walking through a woods now? What could happen to you? Oh, I can't imagine. And we'd go with June Robbins. She had a bad reputation. But, you know, she was fun. Me and Bar she's about 5 years older than me, but she was a teenager and I was about 12 or so. We'd go out and get a Christmas tree, take our axe, climb a fence, get on somebody's farm. I know Cora Mullins, and she used to chop down a tree and we'd drag it home. And we use these paper mache things to trim it with, and cranberries, and we couldn't afford ornaments. Well, I know at Christmas we'd never get anything for Christmas. And I know my father one time, he saved up enough money. I always wanted a typewriter, a toy typewriter. I was going to be a typist. I couldn't type worth a darn. I took typewriting in school, and he bought this typewriter. I must have been about 7 or 8 years old. He saved up his money, and he'd give it to me. And then I went over to my aunt's, and she got me a typewriter. So I had typewriters up the wazoo. I know we'd never get anything for Christmas at home, but we'd always go over to Grandma Park's, where Aunt Ella and Ped were, and they'd buy us Christmas. And we'd have a big dinner. That's what we usually did on Christmas and Thanksgiving. You know, I always stayed a lot of my relatives. I think my mother wanted to get rid of me. But anyway, I stayed with them a lot. And one time I was staying with my grandma Parks. She lived on a ramshackle house. It was the first house, you know. And we were there alone, me and her, and some gypsies drove up to the trough outside. You know, they were getting a drink, and they kept wanting me to come out. I was about 4 or so, 4 or 5. They kept wanting me to come out and get a drink. And she said, no. They would have kidnapped me, is what they would have done. Hard telling what they would have done with me. Sold me, probably. Killed me? Who knows? I'd like to ask my grandparents, were you happy at the time that you lived? Do you think you could be happier living at a different time? Or, I don't know. They were probably happy. They didn't have much, but happiness is the main thing, right? Who was my friends in high school? Doris Weinkoop. You know, nobody liked her. I mean, you know, she was kind of fat, but you know, she had a good family, and I went home and stayed all night with her, and I really liked her. I don't know. I had lots of fun, but I was lucky to get through high school. I never studied. I don't know what I was doing. Having fun, I guess. My best class was psychology, and my worst one was civics. I can never understand that. I do now, but though, maybe it's because I didn't have a book. Did I go to the prom? Yes. I went with Marvin Jeans, so he said, and it was held at the 7 Mile Inn at Eaton, Ohio. And I know he didn't have a car, so he had Ernie Rogan pick us up. And he got so mad because Ernie Rogan took him home, and then he took me home. Ernie Rogan took me home. Well, I worked at the telephone office, which was right by the Palladium, and I'd walk by the Palladium, and he'd see my upper half, and he'd say, "I gotta have that." That's not very nice, is it? But anyway, Bev and I went to lunch at a restaurant, and he come over and asked me for a date. And from then on, it was romance. He always respected me. He had a good personality. And we had a lot in common. We were both poor, dirt poor. We got engaged at the root beer stand in Richmond, Indiana. He asked me to marry him, and I said, okay, June the 28th, or not at all. I gave him an ultimatum. I said, this is it. I have no reason, I don't even know why. But that's what I said. I picked out my own wedding outfit. I know I went down to Harriet's, and this clerk helped me pick out my suit to be married in. I remember what it was. It was a blue suit with pleated skirts. We were married in a church. It was legal. The first house that Dad and I bought was built on Southwest First. We loved that house. It had 2 bedrooms, a bath, a living room, and a kitchen. But it was plenty big enough. I know we were so proud of it. We decorated it in colorful drapes, a green sofa, but we really liked it. It was a cute little house. We had a trellis in the front garage that had beautiful roses, red roses. And Dick always liked to plant things and grow things, and so did I. Of all the jobs I had, and I've had quite a few, I liked information hostess at Washington Square, because I'd meet people of all kinds. I mean, there was mothers with children, and then I had cops come down, and they were nice. Well, I was employee of the month. I know one time there was the snow. I think there must have been 9 inches or so, maybe more. And I was bound and determined to go to work. So Dick plowed the car out, or maybe I drove. I don't know. Somebody drove. Anyway, I went to work, and the only one there was me and the mall manager. All the stores were closed, and so I had to go home. Dick retired. I retired. The kids left. He started acting up and everything. And I think that sent me into a depression. Yeah, really did. I think everybody gets a little lonely after kids leave. That's it. They do. I would say the toughest years of my marriage was the last 15. It sent me into a mental depression. I had about 4 or 5 years, I can't even remember, but I had 4 or 5 years of really rough mental problems. And then Dick started gambling and running up credit cards, and it was awful. He'd buy lotto tickets, and ever since he won the Hoosier lottery, he just changed instantly. And he controlled all the money. I just sat by and let him do it. I should have spoke up, but I didn't. I didn't say anything. Mum's the word. And my mental depression was horrible. I had ECT treatments. Every 3 months, I'd go over to the community hospital. It was like I was going to be electrocuted. It was like a dungeon. I'd go in there, they'd strip me down, weigh me, take my height, and put on a white gown, and then roll me in. And we always got up every morning at 5 o'clock in the morning because I wanted to be first. Because when they'd come out of that, they'd scream. Some of them scream and throw up, and I didn't want to hear that. So finally, I just couldn't take it anymore. So I told Dick, I'm going to call her up, and I'm going to cancel my appointment. I just can't take it anymore. So I did. It was the best thing I ever did, really. What really helped me was, I think Gretchen had me I bet I went to about 5 or 6 psychiatrists. I know they even come in and here to the house, and he wanted me to write a story of my life. That didn't help a bit. So Gretchen took me up to the Hancock counseling, and this nurse took me off of medication and talked to me and helped me. She always said I was her miracle. My greatest weakness is trusting too much. I don't do that anymore. I don't trust anybody. I found out the hard way. And feeling inferior, I always felt inferior and not being organized. I always hated not being organized. And then I thought, why be organized? You know, I think people that are organized are kind of compulsive in a way. They gotta have everything just so. Me, I fly by the seat of my pants. Do what I wanna do. Do when I want to do it. What would I credit for getting me where I am today? Determination. It's like crawling out of a hole, you know? It's just like clawing and getting where I am. Because it's been hard. The last 15 years, I felt sometimes like I was in a deep hole. So I say determination. There's one thing I'd like to tell my grandchildren. I went through a lot, but a lot of people do. I survived through it all. You can take more than you think. I survived, and today I'm happy. Isn't that the main thing? Happiness, right?